I want the option to live tomorrow. And when tomorrow comes, I want the option to live tomorrow as well. Why do I exist? What happens if we die? How do I know if it's a depressive thought or a real thought? What is a real thought? What I had been told was nothing like the reality.
Almost like an identity crisis.
To say the least.
Why do you believe that 99% of the things you're doing are misunderstood?
I could care less about what people think of me right now. I only care what the 25th century thinks of me. For the first time in human history, we can say, maybe death is not inevitable.
I have the pleasure of being in this private group with Bryan, and I read a lot of the stuff that you write. There's a lot of great people in that group, right? But one of the things you wrote today, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it is in this private group, but it says, my ideas and efforts are 99% misunderstood. I think that's a good place to start this podcast. So for those that are tuning in and have maybe read the headlines and seen all the things that you're doing and blood transfusions and supplements and all that, why do you believe that 99% of the things you're doing are misunderstood?
I mean, the origin of what I'm doing is from the thought process of, if you look back through history and you look at any given age, you can identify people who tried to see the most ambitious thing they could do in that given time. So in the 1500s, it was Magellan who said, I can circumnavigate the globe. That navigation and shipbuilding and the tools, instruments of navigation were there. And if you go through other centuries, and in the 1870s, it could be the discovery of germs as these microscopic objects that were causing infection and death. And so if you walk through the centuries and say, right place, right time, right idea, right ambition, if you were to say in 2024, what is the most ambitious thing we could do as a species?
What do you think it is?
End death. That for the first time in 4.5 billion years on this planet, that intelligence has arrived at a point where it has the capabilities where you can say that it is possible that we may be able to extend our lives on some unknown horizon. And that's even 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, that wasn't possible to make that statement. You know, you could say in the 70s, it was our ambition is to go to the moon, which was unthinkable in that moment in time. And then of recent years, it's been, well, we're going to go a bit further and we're going to go to Mars. But it wasn't possible for us to ever contend and say, we think death should be our focus. And that's what my endeavor is about. But the headlines, of course, they highlight things that are resonant and get clicks, but it definitely does not understand what I'm trying to do.
I think people are scared of people who think so outside of the box. I think it scares them. And so the headlines are them trying to put you back in the box so they can understand you.
That's exactly right. That was my message in the group this morning, is that we were having a discussion about about certain innovators not being understood.
Yeah.
We were talking specifically about Elon Musk, and we were in the group, however you feel about him and his beliefs personally, it was like, the group was debating, like, is there a discussion just on what he's trying to accomplish as an individual that is really like a one of one? Like, there's no other Elon that is doing what he's doing in tech, and similar to you, like, you're probably a one of one in what you're doing. And we get caught in the minutia of all the things or the beliefs or what people say or whatever political strife. And I think it disables us from like stepping back and actually looking at what the person is trying to accomplish or has accomplished. And that's like human nature, but it distracts from what I think the main point of the discussion should be, which is, what is this person actually working on and how can it either benefit or hurt humanity?
Yeah. There was a comment also of like, where's the hate coming from, or at least some of the sources, and why does that hate exist? And a person in the group made the observation that it's a very primitive game where some people work within the system or within the state and they want to exercise power over other people. And sometimes others, like entrepreneurs, want to build their own thing so that the state can't have power upon them. They want to build around the system. And so I made the observation that I concur with that, and that what I've tried to do is I've tried to say, of all the forces that could constrain me, the state is one, definitely. but also self is another. And so I am my own worst enemy, even more so than the state. And so I've tried through this endeavor to basically say, what are the strongest forces in existence that keep me down or that prevent me from being my best self, or allow me to see, what is the most ambitious thing one could do in 2024 and actually go after it. And so I was trying to acknowledge that it's not all a game solely of pointing and blaming. It's also one of introspection.
What have you found are the things that you have to block out? I would assume public opinion is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I only care what the 25th century thinks of me. I could care less about what people think of me right now because, and that's based upon good data. You read biographies and you look at any innovator of any era and you see how they were treated in their time. They were considered crazy and eccentric and stupid. And then eventually, over time, we come to view them as pioneers and visionaries, and we just accept what they do as common sense. And so the reaction of a person's time and place is almost you should discredit it entirely. And if anything, it's a positive signal that something may be on the right direction. And so, yeah, I really, when people criticize me, it means nothing to me.
Were you always like that since you were a little boy?
No, I've really had to grow and learn how to do this because like most of us, it feels nice to be respected and loved and included in community. And it feels bad to be excluded and ostracized. And so, yeah, it's really been a long journey to try to get myself in the right mind state for that.
But it seems like it's also, to me, it must be liberating to not have to be in groupthink.
Exactly. So that's the point. So I shared this last night. Someone did a video on YouTube, and it was this guy who was interviewing his friend who was wearing a dog head mask. Okay. So it was like interviewing a dog. And so for 30 minutes, they're making these observations about me and what I do in life. And it was something like 100 inaccurate statements about me. And it was just amazing that these two people were having this conversation and everything they said was factually incorrect, which is fine. But that's how, so you have to understand that when people are expressing opinions, but that's what's happening in friends and family conversation. Like when people dunk on me, that's exactly what they're saying. So I said, how funny would it be if I did a response video and just like, not to tear them down, not to be negative, but just to say like, just so you're aware that when you're in society and you're expressing these viewpoints, and if you're so far off here, it could be the case that's the same somewhere else. And so you definitely don't want to be in a situation where you're working with bad information. Nobody wants bad information. That's not helpful to them. It's not helpful to me, for any one of us. And so I thought it'd be helpful and fun, maybe constructive. I don't know.
I think if you got on TikTok and did a response video, I feel like you'd get millions of views.
You already are getting millions of views, but with you, I'd love to go back a little bit with you because, and we've done our research and talk about kind of your upbringing a little bit. It sounds like there was a lot of religion and maybe you didn't always think this way or feel as liberated to just be yourself. And I'd love to just learn a little bit more about your childhood and what you were like growing up.
Yeah.
I think it's relevant.
Yeah, it definitely is. I guess my life has been like one successive dismantling of reality after another one. So I was born into this religious environment, and it was a situation where they said, this is reality. Every other reality is false. Oh. And your responsibility is to explain to those people who are in error why we're right and why they're wrong. And so that's the entirety of my existence of like good and bad, right and wrong. And so it took, once you're in that world, unless you've been in it, you don't understand how deep that psychology goes.
Especially when you're a young child.
Exactly. Like you're in the womb, like in the womb or even before. And so I left the church, but not until after I went through a few other crises where, for example, I started learning behavioral psychology and I started learning about the 188 cognitive biases that we have. So our minds play tricks on us. Like confirmation bias. It's like, I'm going out to form my own opinion, and you find the first thing and it confirms your bias. You're like, God damn it, I knew it. I knew I was right.
Sounds like you.
I walk by a mirror, I'm like, God damn it, you do look good.
Yeah, so then like I discovered that I am irrational, I am hypocritical, I'm a disaster of cognition.
But when do you realize that? Like, Because I think not a lot of people come to that realization. The majority of people don't come to that realization.
Yeah. My early 20s.
Okay.
And so then it became this shocking reality because I wasn't aware that I was hypocritical and I was inconsistent. And then when I learned this and I started seeing in my behaviors, I was like this mind-boggling experience of, wait a second, this is happening the entire time and I haven't known it. That's scary that my self-awareness didn't capture this larger range. And so that was like the second hit where it's like, okay, I can't trust this reality I've been in. I can't trust my mind. Then I got chronically depressed and my mind started saying that life is hopeless. You know, you should probably kill yourself. And then I had to, like when those thoughts are landing all the time, who's making those thoughts? Is it me? Is it something else? Do I listen to them? Do I not? How do I know if it's a depressive thought or a real thought? What is a real thought? So then I had to contend with where is this coming from and what's happening. So then it's further confirms like my mind is not a trustworthy source. And so I walked through all these experiences in life and I finally arrived, like 10 years ago where I don't know if there's a starting point to trust much of anything outside of maybe basics like math and physics and things that are structurally sound.
When you got depressed, how did you know to take yourself out of it to realize that your mind could play tricks on you? Like that's pretty deep.
It is. To
be young and understand that. It's almost like you have to have some level of intelligence that a lot of us don't maybe have.
Yeah, I wish there was some basic educational standards we had as a society. And one of those would be you are not your thoughts. It was such a turning point in my life to realize that everything that in my mind is generating is just some process happening, but it's not me. I can choose what I do with those thoughts. I can dismiss them. I can evaluate them. I can challenge them. I can go with them. I can do all these things. And so it was that point. And so now, for example, the first 3 or 4 thoughts that land in my mind, I know are going to be wrong on anything.
Huh.
And so for me, it's an observation of amusement of like, what is my mind generating in this moment? And then I have to sort through them a little bit. On the 5th or 6th, I finally get to some stable place where I can start listening to my mind. Before that, it's just trying to figure out what's even happening.
I think one of the most powerful things that we can do as humans is be aware of our thoughts and be able to step outside and look at our thoughts. And I find that for me, the best way to do that is through meditation. Are there things that you do that help you observe the way you think?
Yeah, meditation's been a really important one. Sleep.
So
yeah.
You'll do like dream work and it like works itself out.
When I'm well rested, I have much better clarity of mind. When I'm tired, I find that my grumpiness and irritability creates much stronger emotions.
When you were working so hard, and we'll get into your entrepreneurial endeavors, were you lacking sleep? Is that how you know that experiment?
Yes. Yeah. I was sleep deprived for a long time.
So have you always been, I mean, you're very articulate, you're very intelligent. Have you, since you were little, have you always been of this intellect?
I did really poorly in school.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me.
Huh.
I just couldn't understand the way they structured information.
So the way that they were giving you information didn't work for you?
Yeah, or rather, I should say, I did really well in school. Like I graduated in the top, I don't know, like 3% of my class, but I had to. Hold tight. But I had to work like 5 times longer than my friends. So they would go home, get their homework done or do all their work in school or in class, and I'd be like, I got 5 hours of homework ahead of me. And so the amount of time I had to put into getting really basic things done was it just seemed like I really struggled to learn at the speed they did in those environments and score as well they did. I had to put in so much effort.
Well, I mean, to play devil's advocate there, I think I was a terrible student and I did not graduate in the top 3%, not even close, might be close to the bottom 3. But I think a lot of the way in my particular quip or qualm or whatever with school is that it is set up to follow a very structured system of rules in a lot of cases. And I think that is very challenging for many individuals who don't fit neatly into a box or organization. I've always been an entrepreneur and done my own thing. And not saying one way is better than the other, but there is no way that I plug in neatly to an organization with a process. It's just not how my brain works. Yeah. And I remember getting so frustrated with school because it was all about like, you do this and then you get this. And one, I felt that's very predictable and boring. But two, my brain was like, I want to do something. I want to do it in a different way and figure out how to solve a unique problem that hasn't been solved yet.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. And so I just think it's like, for certain people, it is really challenging because some minds just don't work that way.
Yeah.
There is this magical soothing spray that was actually recommended to me by one of the audience members. It's by Primally Pure, which is one of my favorite non-toxic brands. And they launched, this cycle soothing spray. And what it is it's full of magnesium, which is a magical miracle mineral known to ease discomfort and soothe period symptoms. So I put it to the test. When I got my period, I tried this spray on my stomach and on my neck. And I'm not even joking you, it immediately like calmed my nervous system. And it even gave me fewer cramps. It was so wild. I even paired it with a heating pad. I have like this, it's like a kind of like a heating neck pad with lavender in it. And I put it on top of the magnesium that I sprayed on my stomach. And it was incredible. You've probably heard of this brand because I talk about it all the time because it's the body lotion that I use when I get out of the shower. They have like an almond vanilla body butter that's non-toxic that I started using when I was pregnant. People are like, oh my God, what perfume are you wearing? And it's this body lotion. If you're tired of discomfort during your monthly menstrual cycle, try the Cycle Soothing Spray from Primally Pure. You can go to primallypure.com/skinny. That's www.primallypure.com/skinny. Use code skinny at checkout for 15% off your order. Visit primallypure.com and enter code skinny at checkout for 15% off your order. I always do my research when it comes to my kids, and this is a real good one. A2 Platinum Premium Infant Formula. It's trusted by millions of parents all over the world. But most importantly, it's a nutritionally complete formula with key ingredients to support growing babies. I am obsessed with A2 milk. I've learned all about it. You guys know I've talked a lot about this on my TikTok. And this formula is actually made from fresh, pure A2 milk from cows that naturally produce only the A2 protein. I personally, for my own kids, only give them A2 milk. And now you can feel good about giving A2 Platinum to your little one because quality and safety have always been A2's top priority. They have a flawless track record of 0 recalls, which is important when it comes to formula. They even received the Clean Labels Project Purity Award, so they're very serious about what goes into their formula. You should also know that A2 milk is full of minerals and vitamins, which are so good for your baby. A2 Platinum is the smart choice for your little one. And right now, as one of our listeners, you'll get 25% off your first purchase when you order with our exclusive URL. It's a2platinum.com/skinny. This is an amazing deal. Don't wait. Order now. It's the letter A, the number 2, platinum.com/skinny. That's a2platinum.com/skinny. I am on Revolve a lot. I feel like a lot of us are. It's such a great style destination. I personally find that I am obsessed with their white tees. They have these white James Pierce V-necks that I wear all the time. I'll tuck them into jeans with a belt and they look so cute. They also have my favorite jean brand on there. They have these black jeans by AG Gold that are so good. And they have Skinny Confidential products. So you can shop the ice roller and the pink balls on Revolve. So it really does have everything. If I'm not shopping on Revolve, you can probably catch me shopping on their luxury sister site, Forward. I'm always checking their new arrival section and then I always grab my classics. I usually get like my boots for the season on their site. And I'll also get like a really great pair of like black pants. I just found this pair from The Road. It's like a scuba legging. They're so tight and flattering. I am constantly shopping all the time. It shouldn't surprise you. Go stock their curated edits and collections and definitely grab my favorite white tee. It's so good. From last minute trips to event dressing plus seasonal refreshes, Revolve has you covered with fast 2-day shipping and they have hassle-free returns all on them. So go to revolve.com/skinny today to shop my top picks for the season. And don't forget to check out the festival edit while you're there. It just dropped and it's too good. That's revolve.com/SKINNY. When you got out of school, what did you do?
I served a Mormon mission. So I went to Ecuador to try and tell all those Catholics that they had chosen the wrong religion and that they needed to be Mormon.
So how did you get out of like, what is the journey with religion after you're doing that?
Well, I mean, I grew up in, the 80s and 90s when the internet was not yet around or barely around. And so there wasn't information about the religion. Now there is. And so when I started learning about the origin of the religion and a lot of details about it, it was this scenario where what I had been told was nothing like the reality. And it created this challenge for me of like, who do I believe? The authorities who have been telling me the story or what I'm reading online through these authoritative sources.
Almost like an identity crisis.
To say the least.
Yeah. I mean, to be told your whole life something, I can only imagine how intense that is when you realize that everything you've been told as a child is maybe not right.
Exactly. And like it hits at so because you're given the answer of why do you exist? Did you exist before this? What happens after you die? And this is the case. It's not just my case, but many people in the world are in religions that give them answers to these basic questions. You're either in a reincarnation loop, or you die and you go to heaven and you've got virgins, or there's so many stories that try to reconcile with the unanswerable questions about reality. So I'm not unique in that regard because we are a society that exists upon stories that tries to smooth out the edges of the discomfort of our existence. And when you rip that out from underneath you, you have all these really basic questions to answer.
When you decided to leave religion, how did your family respond?
My family was cool. Yeah,
they were cool.
Yeah, several of my siblings, my father left and my siblings left. So I think as a family, we've learned how to love each other and be tolerant.
You're lucky we've had people on this podcast that their family cut them off. I mean, I've heard really gnarly stories. That's really amazing that they were cool.
Well, it's interesting too, because I think about the people that are maybe listening that did not grow up with religion and are thinking like, oh, that could never happen to me. But think about how many political biases you adopt as a child based on the way your parents think politically, right? And that gets ingrained in you. And
or just habits that you adopt from, I mean, there's
But imagine your
things.
parents from a young age drilling into you, and maybe the unbeknownst to them that like, this is the only way of life and everything else is a lie. Like you would go, I would imagine that would be very confusing and hard at times, especially for a young child.
The benefit on this is on the other side, when I left, and left me devoid of any answers, I got to pose these questions anew. Why do I exist? How did this whole thing come into being? What happens if we die? And it's, as when you're in your mid-30s and you get to ask these questions, it's fun.
So at what point do you start to explore your entrepreneurial side?
So I went on a mission and then I came back. I'd lived among extreme poverty for 2 years. And so I was in, dirt floors, mud huts.
Did you do that so you could experience it? Did you do it because you had to?
It's a responsibility as part of the religion.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. When you're 19, now it's 18, you're asked to go spend 2 years of your life somewhere in the world.
So when you were doing that, were you starting to plan what you were going to do as an entrepreneur?
It was not really, because you're so consumed by the missionary work that's really all you do. You don't do anything outside of that. I came home and I was overwhelmed by the opulence of the United States. I came back and I can't even recreate the experience. It was insane how it was almost like an imaginary world of how pristine it was in the US relative to being in that extreme poverty. And the only thing that I felt internally was this burning desire to do something that would benefit the human race. It didn't make sense to get a job and try to make money. It was just that. I didn't know what it was. I wasn't really good at anything. I didn't have any skills. And so it was just this general thing. And so I said, in my naive 21-year-old mind, I'm going to make a whole bunch of money by age of 30, and then I'm going to go out and change the world. I'm going to make the human race better.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's literally what you're doing. You manifested that.
So for those that are achievement oriented and they're like, okay, well, how does a 21-year-old then, because every headline, and you've read them, tech billionaire, tech millionaire. Like,
Yeah.
I think people have this perception of you, like it's like a modern day Tony Stark, right? And it's like this kind of like veiled character. And I think we do a good job in this country of painting a picture of people that have had the success you've had in business. Where it's like you're almost like this weird creature that's, in the shadows that has, you know what I mean? And I think like it's important to articulate and paint the picture of like a 21-year-old who comes here with nothing and decides to build this career. What did that actually look like for you?
Yeah, I started evaluating ways. I knew there was a few laws. Like one, I couldn't trade my time for money.
Mhm.
I couldn't go out and get a job and make a certain dollar per hour. And even if I wanted to become a profession in some, like a doctor or a lawyer or something, where you can charge higher rates per hour, it wasn't going to make the amount of money I needed on the time frame I wanted. I couldn't do it by age 30. So I needed to build something that would scale and be worth a lot of money in a very short period of time. And so I started focusing on companies that had those attributes. And I didn't really care about the industry. The industry wasn't the application, was the money. And if I knew what I was going to do to try to change the world and marry those two, great. But I just really went after money. So I started companies. A few small ones worked, some failed. And then I started a company called Braintree when I was 27. It was doing payments. And the way I got into that is I was in another startup. We were trying to make ends meet. We had debt up to our eyeballs, like we were barely making rent. And I needed to have a part-time job in order to pay my bills for my other startup. And so nobody would hire me. I emailed the 50 richest people in Utah. And I said, I found this list, the 50 rich people. I said, hey, I'm young, I'm smart, I'm ambitious, I'm resourceful. I'll come work for you. I'll do anything you need. And then no one responded. I applied for 60 jobs. No one would give me an interview. So finally, I found this job posting selling credit card processing door to door. And it was the only thing that allowed me to have time to work the startup and then also make some money to pay the bills for the family. So I had a baby at the time. And yeah, I just went out and I found payments to be this broken industry that had lacked innovation for quite some time. So I did that for a year, and then I started Braintree, which was basically helping online businesses accept credit card payments. So like Airbnb and Shopify were our early customers. And that company grew, and then we acquired Venmo in a couple of years later, and then PayPal bought the entity for $800 million in.
And you bought it for what, 20 something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so okay. So you unlocked the return you were looking for.
Yeah.
Good job.
It seems like though that you wanted to use and just correct me if I'm wrong, what you just said is a lily pad to get to doing what you do now.
Yes.
Well, that's what I find so fascinating now. And like we're going to really dive into your story here, which is, it sounds like this was all, to Lauren's point, just the initial thing that you feel you needed to do in order to do what you are now doing, which is unlock
That's what's so interesting to me. Or that's why I'm so interested in you, because it's like most men that we've had on here that sell companies for a lot of money, they like kind of feel like they made it. And with you, it's different. It's almost like you're using it as a stepping stone to get somewhere else, which is, it's like you just kind of like used it you wanted to use, not just to like make money and buy the sports car. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you have a way bigger picture.
When I told the team when I told people in this office we were interviewing you, I think and this is why I'm so happy you're here, is like there's so much misconception and lack of clarity about what you're actually, and tell me if you disagree with this. I feel in a way your cause is a very noble cause that is essentially trying to unlock more human potential, with you also being willing to be the guinea pig of a lot of this testing on yourself. It's not like you're going and getting a bunch of other people and saying, I need to try all this stuff, and you like, I'm not going to participate. It's like you're essentially doing it on yourself, taking a lot of your own money, funding it yourself. And if it works, it potentially could unlock a lot of new potential and help a lot of people. Is that kind of what
well said?
Okay. Yeah. And I think what people on the other side were like, well, why is this guy that's worth all this money trying to live forever? Like, what makes him so special?
Yeah.
I look at it as like, well, isn't this kind of what we want guys like yourself that have achieved this kind of financial success to be using money for?
Yeah.
Right? Like, we don't need more people buying more infrastructure and taking more and conquering more capital. Like, don't we need people that have had the success you've had to go and figure out how to give back in some kind of way, right? Like that. Anyway, that's just my like how I've thought about it.
Yeah, what they don't understand is I'm trying to make it possible so they can choose to continue to exist if they want. I've never said this is about me wanting to live forever. This is about me saying, I don't want to die. I want the option to live tomorrow. And then when tomorrow comes, I want the option to live tomorrow as well. That's what I'm trying to do for the species. I'm trying to say that death has always been inevitable until now. And if that's the case, we need to transform ourselves as a society of death being inevitable to death being a potential infinite horizon of exploration or life to be. The death is not the case. And so if you have to really unpack this, that our entire society and our lives and our beliefs and our systems and our self-coping mechanisms are all built around death. And you have to really unpack those layers. It's very, very heavy. And so if you look at the response that someone says to what I'm doing, you'll find so many layers of that embedded death cope where it's just a reflex reaction. And so you can't invite someone to live forever because it breaks the human brain. The brain cannot comprehend living forever, so it's rejected at a hand. But a concept people understand is, do you want to live tomorrow? And most people will say, yeah, I'm down for tomorrow. That's the same as living forever. They're identical in concept. And so this is the thing, I've been doing these dinners at my house for the past few years, and we talk about the future of existence. And it takes me 2.5 hours to get people through an entire process where they land and they finally get the ideas. But it really is that long of a process to really unpack all the thoughts that surround death, its inevitability, and these new ideas.
Of that 2.5 hours, where do you have to spend the majority of that discussion? Like, what is the thing that people just take the longest to get?
So I open up with this question that if you had access to an algorithm that could give you the best physical, emotional, and spiritual health of your life, best. But in exchange for the access, you would do what the algorithm says. Go to bed when the algorithm says, eat what it says, and let's just keep it to the health and wellness elements. Let's exclude other parts of life. Would you say yes or would you say no?
Yeah, I would personally say yes. I'm one of those guys, if you tell me the thing,
I'm saying yes.
I went to the
If
dentist
I
today.
get skin like Bryan's too, I'm saying yes.
I went to the dentist today and he's like, oh, do you want the basic routine? You want me to tell you the real? And I'm like, tell me the thing and I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I get, so, okay. And so in this case, you're saying for what you're doing, you are unlocking a lot of that information using the data or the science that you found and figuring out if you do these things, you have the greatest chance to live another day and another day. Okay.
And what this does is this draws the contrast. So we can all make pleasant statements about what we want in life, but then when 9 p.m. comes and our favorite show drops and we want the pint of ice cream and the bag of cookies and the whatever else, that's not the same representation as you wanting your best life. You're in that moment, you're doing something that accelerates disease and death. So you are inflicting upon yourself this destructive behavior. That is inconsistent. And so what happens is people basically say, I want to retain control over having access to my vices or having access to doing things, which I do normally in my cultural moments, that I find to be enjoyable, that make life worth living. They basically say, if I can't have these things, I don't understand why I exist. So even though you have the best physical, mental, spiritual health of your life, like that's really hard to say no to, they say on the other side, but if I can't have my vices and my personal choice to do these things, which I understand are my reason to exist, I can't reconcile the two. That creates a traffic jam.
It's like the smoker who says, I know this is potentially killing me.
I feel that though. I want my skinny margarita, but
I also that's the trade-off.
I would be in bed. I'm in bed at 8:30. So
what he's saying is
there is a traffic jam for me. So how do I unclog the traffic jam?
Saying, is there a night where it's best for you to be in bed by 8:30 to live longer, but also if you want to go get drinks, you're having the margarita at 8:30, which clashes with what is best.
I'll have the margarita at 6:30. Can I have the margarita at 6:30? How do you unclog the traffic jam?
Yeah, cool.
At the dinner.
That's really a wonderful question.
Yeah.
It's okay. You could basically approach this and say, we know our minds are faulty, that much of what our mind generates minute to minute is largely false. If we're that self-aware, like that's quantitatively, scientifically true, a lot of it is false. So you could make a rule and say, if a new idea lands in my brain, I have a rule, I can't form a conclusion for at least 3 minutes. Because the knee-jerk reaction is going to cement you in with a certain disposition of the margarita, and then it's going to pit your brain against this new idea, and all you want to do is to kill the new idea because a margarita needs to be had.
Is that confirmation bias?
These are all the tricks. And so the reality is, so a lot of people will comment and observe about me. They'll say, okay, he must be miserable. He's in a cage of his own making. He's not living life. He's like, they'll make these comments that basically what they're trying to say is, the way I live life, I'm living my best self. I'm living my fullest life. I'm doing my very best thing. And he who's getting sleep and eating well and exercising and in top health, he must be miserable. And they're trying to go back to our first conversation. They're trying to justify, you made the comment as well, they're trying to justify their existence to feel assured that they're okay. Because if they let anything come in their special place and it's not okay, you have to examine yourself. And that is really uncomfortable, contemplating you may have to make change. And so I'll give you the 5 beats I do quickly to walk people through this traffic jam. Is I pose the thought experiment, and then people give me their knee-jerk reactions. And it's like either yes, or like, I don't know, this is complicated because I have these things. And then I flip it to try to create introspection. So I say, now imagine the 25th century is observing our conversation. What do they view are the characteristics of our intelligence? So Homo sapiens in the early 21st century were like what? And so people will make the observation like, well, we have this idea that we love choice, that we love autonomy. We love to be able to make these decisions. Even if they cause death, we still want the choice. What are some of the characteristics? So they make observations and that flips it. So now instead of defending their ideas, they're now introspective, observing themselves. And the next beat is what might change in the future that could change our reality. And then we come back to the thought experiment in the beginning. And so it's a lot to pack in. But okay, like I'll fill in one of the holes here for you. Is the entire contemplation of what I'm doing is an observation that we are baby steps away from superintelligence. We're building artificial intelligence. It's moving very fast. Now, whether you think that it's going to happen, whether we have really smart computers, like super smart computers in 1 year or in 5 or in 20 or in 50 or 100, it doesn't really matter. It's all basically now.
It's happening regardless.
And for all intents and purposes, it kind of compresses that it makes no sense to delay this contemplation. This is a thought experiment that's real.
I saw a meme today of John Connor, and it said John Connor watching all of us make friends with AI.
Yeah.
John Connor's from Terminator, Lauren. She's like, what? Anyways, But yeah, we're there.
So in this case, AI is going to change everything about reality. And to give this context, like how much will it change? Let's just do a thought experiment. Let's imagine we travel back in time and we're hanging out with Homo erectus. And Homo erectus lived 1 million years ago, and they had an axe in their hand. And we said, Homo erectus, where's food? Where's shelter? And where's danger? We're going to listen because they have tribal knowledge that we care about. If we say, Homo erectus, tell us about the future of the human, of your species, we're going to laugh. Homo erectus is not going to be able to talk about the internet and AI and traveling outside of the earth and microscopic objects like germs or quantum mechanics. So it has no capacity. Now, if you say, if the delta between Homo erectus intelligence and ours is the same as our intelligence relative to AI, do we think we have anything relevant to say about the future?
How how do you think about this? I mean, this is like,
but it makes, but
this is, so, I totally get what you're saying.
but it sounds like to
But
me,
this is like really like, how does your brain even like
no, but the point is if
go
you,
through this? It's so interesting to me.
if you study and read a lot of history, like it sounds like you have, the point is go back. There was no way any of these people in the past could predict where we're even at now. And so it's not hard to believe that.
We're basically in the same spot as cavemen is what you're saying.
Exactly. We are the cavemen.
Damn. That is weird to think of. It's very weird to think about. Like, it's just not, it makes total sense what you're saying. I'm trying to figure out through talking to you, though, where the misunderstanding
think about it like even this way. Imagine people during the Civil War even saying, hey, don't worry, you got this cut. We're just going to give you this thing to clear this infection. No big deal. Like as opposed to we're going to cut your whole leg off or maybe you're going to die in a few days. Those people would have looked at you like you were insane. What, I could just take a pill real fast and be fine. And we're kind of doing that. I feel like we are very good as a civilization at jumping on the person who's going to solve this the same way those people probably jumped on. Like doctors used to be known as quacks, right? Like, when you would see doctors running around, you'd be like, these people are like, you know, they're selling us some kind of snake oil too. You know?
snake oil, extra virgin.
But to the point is like, we're very good about being very skeptical about the next thing and resistant to the next thing until it hits us in the face.
I think though I'm still I'm having a traffic jam actually at the fact that I don't understand how people are twisting what you say. Is it because they're not consuming you in long form content?
Yeah.
Like they're
there's a lot of headlines that are very wild.
Yeah. I mean, I understand it. So I did a blood transfusion with my son.
Okay. I want to know more about that.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah. I mean, so what
Wait, quickly.
Yeah.
Can I turn my son into my little blood boy? Is that something I can do? Lauren said if I do that, because I was like, listen, I'm watching what you're doing. I was like, maybe I need to do that.
Let me hear if I can get better skin. We'll talk.
Yeah.
Tell me about this. Give us more context on this.
So what we did is, again, imagining if you're an explorer in 2021 and you're trying to survey the world. So after I sold Braintree Venmo, I sold it in 2013. And so then it basically took me 10 years to arrive at this, because the question I had was, what is one thing I could do that the 25th century will appreciate and respect? And so that's an observation that if you look at any century of time, if we go back to the 15th century, we know that century for, say, 15 things or 20 things. But 99.9% of what happened in the 15th century is gone to history. We compress that entire century into a very small number of bits. And that same thing is going to be true about our time and place. So we are consumed with things on a daily basis, 99.9% of which will be lost to history, because the 25th century is only going to care about 2 or 3 things. And so after I sold Braintree Venmo, I made that money, which I had tried to make when I was 21. So then the question became for me is, what one thing do I do that the 25th century would appreciate and respect? And it took me 10 years to travel down that path and try to basically do several things and try to figure out what it was. And I finally, just in the past 2 years or 3 years, have found what I think is the effort. And so the plasma is basically a branch of that. And so what I posed a question in 2021 is I said, is it the case that we have arrived at a point in time where death is no longer inevitable? For the first time in history, that, you know, there's been many people who've looked at the fountain of youth. And so to do that, to pose a legitimate scientific question, I have a team of 30 medical professionals, and we scoured all the scientific literature. We took the best health span and lifespan studies. We ranked them according to effect size. We graded the evidence, and then we identified the power laws. And then we put all the science into me. And then I became the most biologically measured person in history. And so we got an answer, like, where are we at? Like, what can be done with today's science? And I had measurements to share with the world. I made the entire thing open. So I shared freely with the entire world, everything from my erections to my brain images, everything. I made it all open source. And it's pretty compelling. You can actually meaningfully slow your speed of aging and even reverse aging damage in some situations. And so making that observation of here's where we're at now.
And this is scientifically, you were able to prove this, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
That's right.
Sorry, and keep going.
Yeah. And so then if you say, okay, this is where we're at now, what makes us believe we could potentially solve aging? Like how do you go from where you're at now to solving death? And for the past 10 years, I invested $100 million in companies doing basically building the tools that allow us to engineer physical reality. So atoms and molecules and organisms, everything that makes up our biology and our physical world. And so several of my companies, like for example, one company, Ginkgo Bioworks, which does synthetic biology, if you want rose oil as a perfume, you can plant a seed, grow the plant, fertilize it, water it, harvest it, and get the rose oil. Or you can take a yeast and program the yeast to manufacture the rose oil. So you can engineer biology to do the things that nature does in a very efficient fashion. Instead of growing trees, chopping them down, and building a house, program a seed to grow into a house.
Whoa.
So these things are doable. You can program biology. It's happening every day. And you can do things to program drugs. You can program physical things like rose oil. You can program anything. And then other companies I invested in they build with atoms, like they're nanotech companies, atom by atom, building these atomic structures to do a variety of things. Like if you want to say, we're going to store gas at 100 times the density, you build a new atomic structure for it. And so I knew from my decade of investing in these areas, we have the ability to engineer physical reality. It's not science fiction. It's here right now, happening in the real world with real products.
What's
it's
something
all here.
that like the common person would find surprising that we're engineering already?
Yeah, like rose oil. Yeah, like our scents, our perfumes, all these inputs. Like you can come up with new processes.
We've already figured out how to accelerate instead of doing. Okay, so you already articulated that example.
Exactly. Yeah, and so if we have the ability to actually engineer reality, or if we to do the atomic scale all the way up through biology, and then you say, okay, now we're bringing artificial intelligence online, and AI is increasingly capable of doing the things we humans can do, and more. So it adds this layer of intelligence that we've never had before. And if you look at the speed at which AI is improving, we're adding the equivalent of millions of hours of human intelligence or more to our intelligence stack all the time. So it's just getting more and more robust. We can do things much faster. So you put those two things together and say, okay, here's where we're at now with how we can slow down speed of aging and reverse it. Here we can engineer reality. We've just done these things in the past few decades, and now we're adding AI. That creates this moment for the first time in human history where we can say, maybe death is not inevitable.
Are you somebody that cares about your health and is putting a huge emphasis on your well-being in your mind and making sure you're getting the best ingredients? Well, that's great. But if you're not also doing that for your pet, you're a terrible person. I hope I can say that, which is why we love the farmer's dog so much. We spend so much time thinking about what we're feeding ourselves, our children, our family, and not nearly enough time thinking about feeding the critters that love us the most. And those are our dogs, our pets, the ones that give us unconditional love and support all the time, no matter what we're doing or how we're behaving. So for those of you that are not familiar with the farmer's dog makes and delivers fresh, healthy dog food right to your door. It's developed by vets, nutritionally balanced, and made from real meat and veggies to the safety standards of human food. It's by far the best option for dogs of all life stages because it's not kibble, it's not canned goo, it's just real healthy food. Lauren and I have been giving this to our dogs, Slim and Boone, for years now, and they are thriving. They are happy. Their coats are full. They're just all in all doing great. Traditional dry and wet dog food options are highly processed, can use much lower quality ingredients they claim to, and are extremely difficult to portion accurately. The farmer's dog isn't just fresh, higher quality food. They also send the food pre-portioned specifically for your dog based on their unique nutritional needs. So check it out. We have a massive offer from The Farmer's Dog. Get 50% off your first box of fresh, healthy food at thefarmersdog.com/skinny. Plus you get free shipping. Just go to thefarmersdog.com/skinny to get 50% off. That's thefarmersdog.com/skinny. The Skinny Confidential, Him and Her podcast, is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is one of our favorite partners. We have been working with BetterHelp for years on this show. Mental health is so important, and we have had so many great conversations with people who have benefited so much from therapy over the years. So many high performers, so many people that have just absolutely changed their lives or turned their lives around, whether they've been battling depression or anxiety or just a difficulty in life. One thing Lauren and I have learned doing this show for as long as we have is that talking about your problems and issues is so important. Just getting it out in the open, not holding it in, not bottling up, which is why we love BetterHelp so much. BetterHelp makes therapy easy and convenient and accessible for anyone, whether it's on your smartphone, your laptop, your computer, your iPad. You can do it from anywhere. Long gone are the days of having to go into an office and sit in a waiting room. You can do this right from the convenience of your own home or office. And what we love about BetterHelp as well is they have licensed therapists that you can connect with right away. At any time, you can change therapists for any reason. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, like I said, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Again, we could not be bigger believers in therapy, especially after all of the conversations we've had here. We just have seen the impact that it has on people that decide to dip their toes in that water to better their lives. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/skinny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/skinny. BetterHelp.com/skinny.
I have to go back to the erections. Is the more erections you get, the younger you are? Is that why the erections are relevant to aging?
That's right.
So
But this is why the headlines get twisted, because I think people...
So as Michael ages, he's going to get less erections? That's what you're telling me?
Yes.
Well, that's,
you better get with Bryan.
yeah. Bryan, I might even get you on speed dial here. No, but I think this is where the headlines become misleading, because people will take... And I want to still talk about you and your son's relationship and the transfusion and all that, but also they will take the erection headline and it's almost a way to kind of diminish what you are talking about here, which is having more erections is an indicator of actually slowing the aging process, or in some cases actually going in reverse if you start to improve and get more erections, correct?
Yeah, I mean, like we went through this process. The difference between, I'm chronologically 46, I'm biologically 100 plus different ages. Like my left ear is 64, my heart is 37, my diaphragm is age 18. So you can measure the biological age of your entire body. And so this concept is new. People don't understand that our body ages differently.
So you get like a hip transplant, or like maybe that's a dumb example, but if someone's knee gives out, that's a different age than maybe someone who's got a really strong left arm.
Exactly. You can look at the anatomical characteristics and the functional characteristics. And so one day with my team, I was talking to them and I said, what would it take for me to have the most quantified penis in the world?
And who doesn't want a quantified penis?
Who doesn't want a quantified penis?
Every guy that's listening, don't you lie about this. This is a projection. If you're projecting this onto Bryan, you're just pissed you don't have... Taylor, how do you get a quantified penis, Bryan? Tell us.
So we said, all right, we're going to look through the scientific literature and we're going to evaluate every way to assess the penis. And one of these ways was to assess nighttime erections. And so when men and women have nighttime erections, it's harder to measure a woman's erection. It's harder to actually get at the place you need to be. With men, it's just very accessible. And so for male erections, I use a little device, a little cube that's like a centimeter cubed, and there's a little string, you put it around the shaft, and you go to sleep. And
Taylor will volunteer. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, a very comfortable one. And so I did my baseline measurement, and my nighttime erections were 2 hours and 12 minutes as a baseline. And so that's about average for my chronological age. So as you age...
We get that many erections in the night?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, you
Holy
don't.
Shit.
Yep. So as you age...
See, Lauren, all you got to find me is when I'm asleep.
Bryan, please, I can't talk about Michael's erections. I've had enough of that.
So then we then did a few therapies. So we found two therapies. They had good studies for erectile dysfunction. So I don't have erectile dysfunction. I didn't have erectile dysfunction, but we wondered, will they work? If they can improve ED, would they improve normal function? And so I did two things. I did a focused shockwave therapy. So it's a little wand, and it's used for whole body rejuvenation. Like if someone tears an ACL and they're doing physical therapy, it accelerates that healing process. It can be used on joints. And so you can use it on the penis, including the shaft and the tip. And so I did several sessions of this focused shockwave therapy, which it's pretty painful.
Oh, I was
What
gonna
does
say,
it feel like?
Just like a shock. And
to your penis?
Yeah, it's especially painful in the tip.
Oh, Jesus
Well,
Christ.
I don't feel that bad for you guys. We have to have kids. Go on.
Yeah, right. And then the second thing I did is I did Botox in the penis,
Oh.
which it was a 31 gauge needle, so it wasn't that big of a deal.
Wait, wouldn't Botox relax the penis?
It opens up for greater blood flow. It increases erection strength. It has all kinds of benefits. But I had all these other measurements, and like we looked at my penile blood flow. So I got erect, and then we used ultrasound to look at blood flow in the penis. I looked at max urination speed, even though it's not directly sexual, it's still part of the entire function. So we had all these measurements. So after I did these protocols, my nighttime erections are now, my latest measurement was 179 minutes. So I'm now better than the average 18-year-old.
So it means that your penis is actually like 18 years old.
Well,
Better
this is a
than.
good
Better
show
than.
for you to come on. I told you there's a big female demo. You
Yeah,
might
watch
get
out
some
for
different kinds of
you.
messages now.
Yeah, better than. And so what's interesting is, but erections, they represent sexual health, but also physiological health and cardiovascular health. It's a really important marker. And so when I started sharing this, a lot of my friends messaged me and they're like,
I'm sure they did.
I don't think I'm having any erections, which is true if you're not sleeping well and you've got a poor diet, and not exercising, your nighttime erections may be 0. So it's a really important indicator of health. And so they're like, I don't think it's happening at all. And so it just was a really nice moment that you can talk about these fanciful topics of like whatever I'm saying, but when you talk about boners, it's like, I got it.
How many people are texting you behind the scenes saying, Bryan, look, give me an 18-year-old penis. What do I need to do? Get me that focal one, a little Botox. Like,
Yeah.
my question is,
I just
bet
sent you a DM, Bryan.
I know. I bet you are getting so many people that I'm going to say are embarrassed to maybe even say they're messaging you behind the scenes.
That is true. I get hundreds every day.
Huh.
Mhm.
That's the funniest thing. See, this is how you really know you're onto something and you are innovating, because people start to be secretive about it, and then instead of just saying they want to know this information.
This is why, though.
If I'm a guy and I can make my penis be 18 and I'm 50 years old,
Of course.
I'm sure as hell injecting my penis
There's
with
not
Botox.
one man listening here right now that says, I don't
you're
want to have an
lying if you
18-year-old
say-
penis. No, of course not. But here's where I think there's a bit, like, this is just a commentary on society as a whole.
Are you going to
where-
get a focal one?
where I think we're in some trouble. And this goes back to what this group was saying about Elon earlier, and people like yourself. Is like, why would we not want to take an honest, objective perspective and review about what people like yourself are working on? Because I get the clickbait headlines, and I get, but what you just articulated is much different than someone reading a headline like Bryan Johnson measures his erection. Like you have to have the full story of like why you're doing this and the indicator of health and age and all of these things, or else. And it drives me nuts when, listen, I get people are running businesses and they need to drive awareness, but it does a disservice, I think, to humanity as a whole to not get the full context.
I don't think I agree with you, Michael. If I were you, I would be happy that these headlines were happening, because it's getting people to pay attention, or then you can come on a long platform show like this and explain and give context. Without the headline, I think you need the headlines.
Yeah, but I do.
Do you or no? I want to know what Bryan thinks.
Yeah, I'd love to know what you think
do you
first.
think you need the headlines?
You're at the receiving end of this.
Yeah. I love all of it. I love every.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
I love the hate. I love the headlines. I love the misunderstanding. I love every bit of it.
That's how I would be.
Yeah, I mean,
I would like it too. I'm going to do a headline about my vagina.
and here's the thing.
There we go.
This is why, though, we need some people like yourself that have the armor and the resilience to deal with this, because most people, they get a little bit of pushback, in anything, and it just completely folds them and crumbles them. And it's like, that's not helpful. I want to go back to your son a bit and the relationship you have with him. Again, I think that was an interesting headline, and maybe a lot of misconception there. To me, it sounds like you have a great relationship with your son, and it almost feels like he was excited to do this with you and see if he could be helpful.
Yeah, the origin of the plasma was that I was speaking to my dad, who works in the legal profession, And he called me in a panic and he said, I just had this incident where I was working on this project. I left the room, I came back, and I realized that what I was writing was a jumbled mess. So I was experiencing cognitive lapse and I couldn't see it. And that terrified him, that's understandable. And so I empathized with him. I said, Dad, that just must be the worst thing. Like, what matters more than keeping your mind? And so I said, we're currently looking at this plasma therapy as a way in which we can improve certain biomarkers. And in our research, we're seeing that some people are trying this on those with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So I said, if you're down for it, I would be more than willing to give you a liter of my plasma.
From you personally?
And
Yeah.
I'm really, really scared of blood and needles. I have to ask you this. How long does it take to get a liter? I can't even do a tube. How long does it take?
Yeah. It's about 90 minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
Does it hurt?
I mean, you've got to be in it. You have to be paying attention. It's a big needle, because the way this machine works is it pulls the blood out and then it cycles it and it separates the blood from the plasma and then puts the blood back in you.
Do you get extremely lightheaded?
If you hydrate well, you're fine. So you lay back, you have the needle in. It's okay. Like, you just have to be present. It's not a walk in the park, but it's fine. So I had this talk with my dad, and my son overheard me, and he's like, I'm in. And we're like, great, we'll make it a family affair, multi-generational thing. So we're all smiling, and this is fun. Like, this is just like, we're going to go mess around. So yeah, we fly to Texas because it's not legal in California. We go to Texas, and my son goes first. He pulls a plasma out of himself. I go second. I pull a liter out of myself. I put my son's liter in me. My dad goes next. He takes a liter out of him, and he puts my liter in. And what was interesting, here's the cool thing, is I know that's focused a lot on my son, but my dad, we used the test using a technology called DNA methylation. It's like these chemical fingerprints in the body of how stuff's happening. And it's a clock that determines how fast you're aging. So there's a clock. Are you aging at the normal rate of 1, or are you aging at the rate lower than 1, which is slower, or higher than 1, which is faster? And so my father's speed of aging lowered by the equivalent of 25 years. So he went from aging at the speed of a 71-year-old to the speed of a 46-year-old after one infusion. Now, there's not enough known whether it was from him removing a liter of plasma or from accepting mine or a combination of both. We don't know. But still, it snapped him back into a state where his colleagues were asking him, what the hell? Like, what happened? You're just lucid in a way that we haven't seen. And so, and it stayed that way for 6 months. We did 3 tests before, 3 tests after to make sure we had accuracy of the test, but it was significant. And so for my father, it was a life-changing event. And it was interesting that the therapy actually had the same effect size in him as you saw in the animal models that were being used.
Well, and the reason I had my phone open is that when a Business Insider did a piece, is a controversial tech millionaire, they also have to say that part in the beginning, says his father, 70, is now biologically 46 thanks to injections of his super blood.
Yeah.
That's the headline.
Hell of a headline.
Wait.
But real quick, I have an incredible relationship with my father, and if he called me with that and I knew that this technology existed and I could do this for him, you better believe I'm doing this for him. And I think many people listening, thinking about a loved one, if they're healthy and they knew they could do this, if this technology existed for them, why would they, many people would do this? I
have little questions. Does it have to be in your family, or could Michael give it to me and I give it to Michael? Yeah,
you can. You just need to be blood type matched.
Blood type match. Okay,
so blood type match.
And
I can't do that for you. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to find another friend.
Yeah. I wonder if it's gender matched. I don't know. Blood type for sure.
Okay.
I think gender too.
Why can't you test your dad when he gets the liter removed with the age test and then put the liter in him and then test him after?
We did that.
And so why didn't you know if it's from the liter or from the liter being removed?
I see. You're saying, we could do 2 different experiments. Yes.
I wonder which, I believe it's from putting it in. Do you?
Well, what happened to you when you got from your son?
Nothing.
Nothing.
But the reason, I think, actually, what we hypothesize is my biomarkers are already pretty competitive with an 18-year-old.
Yeah. How old is your son?
He's 18.
Is he as interested as you are in all of this?
Mm-hmm.
So he's very highly intelligent and like he's really into like learning all about this.
Yeah, he's in.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Damn.
I mean, this is fascinating stuff. And
Ooh.
again, why I was so excited to have you on, because I think that the intention, I'll go back to that with you, is in, or it seems to be in the right place. To play devil's advocate, somebody asked earlier, like, well, why does Bryan feel that he's ordained to live longer than the normal person?
He just answered.
And it was the question of like, why does this person feel so special that they should be the one that lives?
It's not about, it's not about living. It's about living another day.
Well, that's why I think
and it's giving people the tools. If they want to live another day, they have an option. It's optionality to me.
Yeah, and also I realized that observation has a bit of animosity in it. And I would tell the person that I've spent millions of dollars on this project, and I've made it all available to them for free. They can do it. So I'm not holding it behind a paywall. I'm not. You're
not hoarding this for yourself.
It's entirely transparent and it's affordable. It's just like the majority of the things that I do, you can do at no cost. And so this is it's just a misunderstanding. It's fine that they express that opinion. I understand. There's reason for people to be upset, but if they understand the intent behind this and it's all accessible to them, I did this for them, then sure.
Speaking of free, Lauren, I think you'll find this fascinating. Sleep is big for you. Yeah. You've talked about it a lot. We're big on routines here. Can you describe the environment you sleep in and the routine you set up? Because to your point about being free, a lot of this, if people set up their environment correctly, will make a huge impact, just sleep in general. Can you talk about how you set up a solid sleep environment?
Yeah, the first thing to do is to reframe your identity that you don't sleep to live, you live to sleep. And so understanding yourself as a professional sleeper changes the identity. And if you're willing to reframe yourself in doing that, everything else kind of falls into place. So that means sleep is not something you get to push around all the time. If you're wanting to watch your favorite movie or you're wanting to hang out with friends, it's not something just always gets the short end of the stick. And so after you get that identity thing correct, then I personally sleep alone. So that's, I know, controversial that a lot of people do sleep with their partner, but that's very hard to coordinate. If you're trying to get your environment right, sleeping alone gives you a lot of ability. Two is I have a blacked out room, so there's no light gets in there at all. So
no windows?
I blacked it out entirely. Okay. Yep. I have a temperature controlled mattress from 8 Sleep.
I've heard those things are great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And then other things, which I eat my last meal of the day at 11 a.m. And so
What?
Yeah, so I just follow the data. So I did a few hundred experiments and I tracked when I ate, what I ate, how much I ate, and my sleep is best when I finish by 11 a.m.
What time do you wake up?
Like 4 or 5.
Okay.
And I'm assuming no alcohol, no drugs.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And so earlier this year, I posted what is potentially the best sleep score in human history. I shouldn't say human history, but like since wearables have been out.
Lauren's going to have an orgasm.
I love that.
Yeah, I have 8 months of 100% sleep. And no one had ever done that before, not because it's impossible, just because no one had actually tried to do it. And so I shared my data, but yeah, I tried to perfect sleep. And now others are sharing that they're knocking out 100% every night. So it's really caught on with that you can actually achieve this high quality sleep.
Bryan, do you mouth tape?
I don't.
Your sleep score, I think, will go even higher if you mouth tape. I'm so into mouth taping right now.
Tell me.
It relaxes your nervous system because nasal breathing obviously is so important. And it does something that takes you into a different wave. I'm obviously not a scientist. Maybe like theta or beta? It's something. Yeah. It does something. You can feel it. And then nasal breathing gives me the most rested sleep I've ever had. If you do everything he already does and you mouth taped, I would be interested to see if the sleep score changed at all.
Yeah, I'll try it. The reason why I have actually sleep tape things at the house.
Okay.
But I started having bruxism in my early 20s, I think just from the stress of life. So I would grind my teeth.
Yeah.
And sadly, no one really told me how to fix that. I wish I would have been advised earlier, but I ended up getting through the dentist I have now this device. I think it's SomoGuard.
Is it just like a retainer type thing?
It's a top and a bottom, and it has a connective thing between the top, and it basically arrests your mouth. So it's not like like a mouthpiece where you can still move your jaw. It just locks your.
So you're probably already nose
You're probably
breathing.
already getting a majority of.
I think so.
I think the big thing is people, we forget how to breathe, and you end up with the like slack jaw, mouth hanging open, and then your mouth breathing most of the time, losing a lot of moisture.
You probably only nose breathe then if you have something that's arresting your jaw.
Yeah, probably. So I guess the reason why I don't do it is I tried it because it's a pretty large device. So I try to put it over, and my mouth doesn't fully close. So it's a lot of material in my mouth. I'll try it again though.
I wonder if you just shut right here, if it makes any difference.
Of all the experiments that you've done on yourself, what do you believe has been the most impactful or gave you the greatest movement or, greatest impact?
Sleep.
I knew he was going to say that.
Yeah, there's nothing more powerful to a Homo sapien
than sleep.
Yeah.
It's so funny when you think about that, because like the culture for the longest time was rewarding this, like, hey, you don't sleep, get up and go. And I'm sure in your early years when you were building the companies, like sleep was not the priority.
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is so cool. I think it's so disruptive. I love anyone who's disrupting and doing it on their own terms. Tell us about Blueprint.
I'll give maybe some context. When the 13 colonies were around, they were ruled by the monarch in the UK. And the US said, hey, we want to be a democracy because we think we can do things better than you, monarch, who doesn't really understand the situation. You're so far removed. You're one person. We're a very complicated part of the world. And so they chose democracy as a way of being. And this is the idea of people vote, and they have these structures. And so they changed the power structure of how people manage affairs from a monarch to a democracy. And I approached this problem with myself, and I said, okay, I have my mind, which is a monarch. I get to my monarch chooses what it wants to eat, when it wants to eat, what it's in the mood for. I want to basically become a democracy where my organs are voting. And so I measured all the organs, and we said, okay, how are you doing? Lungs and liver and pancreas and heart and brain. What do you need to be your best self? And we looked at the scientific evidence, and then we said, we're going to design the perfect diet for the body, letting the organs speak. And we're going to build an algorithm, because an algorithm is going to be better at doing this than I am myself. So that's what this is for the past few years, we've tried to build the perfect diet. And so when this became viral, people would say, okay, I'm in, I want to do it, but it's way too complicated. Like there's too many pills, it's too hard to prepare food. And so from a standstill last February, I knew nothing about food. And I think we've now built the most nutritious food program in human history. I think it's the most scientifically robust food protocol ever built.
Like, I feel like you could take it to the moon if you're an astronaut.
I think it would travel well.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that nutritious, I mean, it seems like it'd be a good thing to take to the moon. What's your favorite product out of all of these that you have?
I love them all.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is extra virgin olive oil, which is 15% of my daily caloric intake, and this is very specific criteria. I think it's something like less than 1% of the olive oil meets this criteria every year in harvest. It's it's premium extra virgin olive oil. We basically got into this because we knew the scientific evidence supports olive oil as a robust health intervention, but only of a very specific type. And
how do you consume the olive oil, you personally? Is it something, are you like taking a shot of it? Are you putting it on a specific food, a salad? Like how do you ingest it?
As you please. So 1 tablespoon with every meal. And you do that because when you eat, it causes damage in your body. So for example, oxidized LDL creates plaque in arteries. That's bad. And so if a extra virgin olive oil consumed with food lowers oxidized LDL by 80%. And it also lowers blood glucose and lowers LDL. So it lessens damage from eating while also providing the nutrition.
It's good for your skin too.
It is.
That's so interesting that's 15% of your diet. Because when I first walked in and saw you, I said, your skin. And it's really good for your skin. Do you think that's one of the reasons that you're so like vibrant?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it has to be a really specific kind of olive oil. It's to emphasize that. And then these are basically 8 pills a day. We tried to squeeze in every single thing we could This is a daily mix. You do a morning drink. It's delicious.
And what kind of mix? What is it? Is it like electrolytes or is it?
Yeah, it's got creatine and a bunch of other. So we took the most powerful scientific interventions from the literature, and we put them all in these products, and we said which things taste great and which things taste terrible. We put the terrible tasting things in the pills and the nice tasting things in the mix.
Smart.
And then, this is nutty pudding, which is basically like a protein shake with some berries. And then this is chocolate, same as extra virgin olive oil. It's among the best chocolate in the whole world. And then we have like a whole bunch of other products coming out in 3 or 4 months. But what I'm trying to do is basically give someone the most nutritious food program in the world and have it be more cost competitive than fast food and the grocery store. So I want to beat fast food and the grocery store on cost and then just blow them away on nutrition. But that's really, I'm serious about this death thing. Like, this is not a money grab. This is not me trying to.
Well, I think that's what people, and I say this with respect. It's like, you kind of already have the money, right? Like, adding a little more is not going to materially change your life. Yeah. Right.
It doesn't.
Like, yeah. And
exactly.
so I think people, they read the headlines and they see this I could throw another 100 at you and it's not going to make a difference. It might, it's nice, but you're not going to change the way you live based on that.
There's like 5 levels of ambition, if I can remember these right. 1 is start a company. 2 is start a country. 3 is start a religion. 4, don't die. 5, become God. And so the company is just it's not in my scope of ambition anymore. I just don't care about it. Yep. I'm going to build a country. And so I'm going to build a don't die nation state, because if we're serious about not dying, like we're really serious, we need practical things. We need to test ourselves. We need medical services. We need therapies. And no government in the world cares for its citizens in that capacity. And so if we're serious, we have to build out real world infrastructure to help people not die.
I'd like to come to dinner next time.
Yeah.
Listen, we got it, and it hasn't
I'd
been
like
2.5 hours.
my teaspoon of olive oil, snake oil, Bryan Johnson. I want the olive oil, and I'd like to come.
Oh, you should. Yeah, we should try it right now.
Can we?
Yeah.
Do we have any cups or any way to do it?
Yeah,
Or
we can
however
get Taylor. Can you get some spoons? We can try it on
Taylor,
air.
hurry! I need to add some more years to my life right now.
Well, you
Yeah, I wanna
also
see.
get the focal wand.
Yeah. Do you have another cock ring on you?
We forgot that, Tyler.
Just a little bit. I think that getting this message out to a greater audience, and really like the reason we chose to do this podcast and why we do it so frequently is it's great to be able to consume something in a headline or a 60-second TikTok clip, but I really think like the context in the long form is so important. To your point, like you do a dinner party, I'm assuming with very interesting, intelligent people, and even with that group, 2.5 hours to just get the idea across, right? Like there's some thought that needs to go into this discussion.
Yeah. This is going to burn your throats.
That's okay. I will do anything for beauty
that's
or
good.
aging besides
Oh, okay, cool.
blood. That's the only thing I can't do.
I will do the blood.
I can't because I'm too scared.
Okay.
Hey, I had a random question for you while you're opening that too. A friend of ours asked us today with embryos or, cord blood, is that going to be interesting or useful for some of the experiments you're doing in the future?
Yeah, cell therapies are really promising. Yeah, they just need to be, you need to be careful with them. They can go
Thank you.
wrong way.
Or even women that have maybe frozen embryos and then have decided that they, maybe they've had a child and there's embryos left. Like, will it be used?
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
I guess what we're asking is if someone froze embryos and they only use 2 and they have 10, they should save the rest for future just in case, correct?
Yeah. One of my friends is building a company doing that. And we were just talking about that. Yeah, I think that's what she said. I asked her the same question.
All right, we're drinking snake oil, premium olive oil.
Oh, I'll do it with you guys.
Yeah, do it with us.
Cheers. Do you want some?
Oh, no, it's okay.
Yes, he does. He brought himself.
Give him half the bottle.
Yeah, he wants some.
It's snake oil.
Yeah, it's snake oil time. You need to live a little longer. I need to produce
I
a
want
couple
you to
episodes.
count how many erections you have every night, Taylor.
Okay.
I woke up last night.
We don't need your whole life story. Okay, so tell us what
Go
we're
back
drinking.
behind your cage
Why is
back
it going to
there.
burn?
A good olive oil will burn.
Burn like a shot, or
Yeah,
burn like
and it'll probably make you cough. So what are we going to cheers to?
cheers to you saving
Erections.
humanity and making us all have the option to live forever.
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers.
And what also erections?
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
I'd like an 18-year-old
Cheers.
penis.
Mm.
I love it.
Mm.
I don't think it burns.
It's not as burned. Yep. This is our new Australian batch. Oh, wait.
A little
There you
burn.
go. See,
Yeah,
right?
a
It just
little.
hit.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Right
Okay.
there.
A little.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say a little. It
You
takes
can
a
feel-
second.
You can feel it.
No, it has just a kick.
Yeah.
It's good though.
Very
Yeah.
smooth.
This is the first time I've had. We just got this batch
It does
in.
have a little burn. You're
Would
right.
you
You're
not
right.
want to cook with this and heat it up? You just want to like,
I do it raw. Yeah.
Okay,
Just
yeah.
to preserve all the potential benefits. I treat
Okay.
this as this is gold.
Bryan, where can everyone find you? Where can they find Blueprint? Pimp yourself out.
I'm on all the social platforms, and blueprint.bryanjohnson.com. You can find products. They're not available yet. We just did a few thousand person self-experimentation study. So we have a few thousand people doing this right now, and we're going to publish all the data as I have done with myself. So this is open science. But yeah, I'm generally around. I try to be responsive.
If you need a woman to try it, I want to try it. I'm a guinea pig. Besides
So
blood.
yeah, I love your disposition. And so we definitely want to do more of this. And so we want to focus more on females. So I had my coworker, Kate Tolo, did Blueprint. She was the second person to fully do it.
Did she like it?
She did. It was a life-changing experience for her.
If you need a woman to try, I will try anything.
Yeah.
Like I said, besides the blood, because I'm too scared. But anything, I will literally try anything.
we are going to
Cool.
make a new headline. They're going to say, Lauren is now.
I'll try any. No, I really will. If you told me that like eating shit makes your skin glow, I'd be like, okay, let's
What's
try
your
it.
diet now?
It's a lot of meat.
Uh-huh.
A lot of meat. I had to lose 60 pounds after I had a baby. So it's a lot of meat, but
Mhm.
it's like grass fed.
Do
Like
you eat meat?
Well, he's going to say, I'm going to say he's going to say yes.
Do you eat meat?
Oh, only plants?
Mhm.
Really? Why?
This is the only place where where I have superimposed a preference. I hope that with the arrival of superintelligence, I hope that one thing that scales with intelligence is compassion.
Huh.
Because I think we are alpha now, and so we do whatever we want to whomever we want, whatever we want in this moment, but we are no longer alpha. And so I hope that compassion is a law that we benefit from.
And it from your products, can you get the same nutrients that you get in meat?
Yeah, so this is the thing where I'm vegan, except for collagen peptides.
Okay.
I'm caloric restricted, so I eat 250 calories less than otherwise would be advised for my level of activity and age. And my markers, like for example, I'll give you a few. Like my total bone mineral density is in the top 99.8 percentile of 30-year-olds, which is age men. My cardiovascular capacity is in the top 1.5% of 18-year-olds. That's how well my body uses oxygen. You know, my nighttime erections, because we talked about it, is better than the average 18-year-old.
Just to make sure that's clear again.
You guys forgot.
My speed of aging is slower than 86% of 18-year-olds. Because as you age faster as you get older. It starts compounding upon itself. So you want to lower your speed of aging. That's a really important one. Is you want your internal clock to be slow. And so we know this intuitively. We see some friends, they look great for their age. Some friends are not doing so well.
Or sometimes people hit a certain age and then all of a sudden it seems like a year goes by and they deteriorate.
What do you do for exercise?
Yeah, that's one thing we didn't cover.
Yeah,
is
I have to know what you do for exercise.
I do an hour a day.
Okay.
I try to flex and stretch every muscle of my body.
Oh, is it like almost like a sort of like a physical therapy thing?
I do weights, I do cardio, I do stretching. So the evidence doesn't say that there's any one kind of activity that is better than the other for promoting. It's just basically being active. And so I work a lot on joint strength, mobility, flexibility, balance. Like another age test you can do is you can stand on one foot and close your eyes.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, that's an age test. So I think age men is 3 minutes. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, people, if they do this test, it might freak some people out actually.
Yeah.
But when I first started experimenting with this and like kind of cleaning myself up, that was one of the tests I did. I was like, oh, let's start working on the health here.
Because most people topple over. Because you get older, you lose your balance. That's one of the first things to go. It creates challenges for falling. But yeah, balance is a really important age indicator.
Yeah, Taylor, come over here. Close your eyes, stand on one foot. Let's see it.
No, let's see it. Let's see it.
You might find it interesting.
Let's see it.
Let's see. Okay, close your eyes.
I'm scared. What way?
Stand on one foot.
Yeah.
No, first stand on one foot, then close your eyes.
And so, yeah, exactly. You can position your foot however you want.
Shit, you're right. Oh God, I'm not hearing. Holy shit.
Yes, exactly.
You can do 3 minutes?
Yeah.
So, Taylor, not to freak you out, but what do you want to get to a place where you want to get your body to a state where you can do 3 minutes like that, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So the markers you want, so if you're into this, is you want your speed of aging to be around 0.7 to 0.8. So my last is 0.69.
And how do I find out what my speed of aging is? Is it a blood test?
Yes, but it's only a finger prick.
Oh, okay.
It's so much better.
Ugh.
And so it gives you a baseline for your internal clock. So
Okay.
you want to slow your speed of aging.
Okay.
And then, because everything, there are some technologies to reverse age damage, but you're really just trying to get your body to slow it. So you could try, if you wanted to, a blueprint diet.
Yeah, I would love to.
It's published online. So it's all, you can go to the stuff I have online, or you can do something like this, whatever you prefer. And then exercise daily.
Okay. I mean, yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
then do sleep.
Sleep. I'm
You're
in
good.
bed at 8:30.
Yeah.
Dude,
We
that's pretty
have-
good, right?
That's very good.
No phone.
Where was that?
Yeah.
The problem is right now we have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and
Yeah,
they're
that's the problem. I
they're-
get woken up
Yeah.
in the middle of
Okay.
the night.
So this, if I could do kids again, I have 3 kids.
I thought you only had one. I didn't know you had 3.
Yeah.
So if you could do kids again, what? Give us the advice.
I would get the family, we'd all sit down and we'd say, we are a family that values sleep.
How do I say that to a 1-year-old?
Yeah. So you just do it. And so here's the rule, family. Nobody gets out of, so unless the house is on fire, nobody gets out of their bed and nobody wakes anyone up. Like, that's rule number 1 for everyone.
I wish somebody would have told this to my dad when I was a kid.
Wait, hold
he
on.
slammed that door open in the morning and smashed the lights on full
His
blast.
dad was really just induced cortisol all the time with the way he woke him up.
Oh,
Wait,
God.
but
Oh, that's
you need
traumatic.
to let your son cry it out
Yeah.
instead of getting up and running to his
I don't
bedside because
run.
we're training him.
Yeah.
What he's saying, you have to go let
Can you
him.
play marriage therapist here for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
No, she's right.
He needs to let our son just cry
just
it
let him
out.
cry it out. Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. You do.
Okay. No,
It's
if Bryan Johnson tells me, then I'll do
It's
it.
torture
Yeah.
to do
I've
that.
had all sorts of parenting experts on the show. I'm not gonna listen to them, but you come on and tell me.
But the kids get it. Like, even a 1-year-old, you can talk to them, they get it. Right? Like, 4-year-olds, they get it. Like, you don't think they do.
They understand.
They absolutely understand these things. And it may take a few times and a few like reiterations, but kids, as an adult, I was late to the party to understand how much kids get. And I wish I really would have internalized that sooner.
Oh, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
How old were you when you had your first child?
24.
Okay, so it's young still, too. I mean, people
Yeah.
have done younger, but that's young for.
Yeah.
You are welcome to come back on the podcast anytime. There's truly 20 million other things I could have asked you. You're very, very good at podcasting. Please come back on when this is available and everyone can shop. In the meantime, go follow Bryan on Instagram. He's a great follow. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this, Bryan. Glad we got to do it.